Mario & Luigi Brothership has now been out for a couple of days, and I'm about 15 hours into the game, so you can say I've dug into the game pretty well, and I pretty much know the ins and outs of how this game works, so I can actually finally talk about what people have been talking about online. And if you haven't heard, most of the reviews online are actually really good from publications, and even people saying that they're having a really great time. Lots of 8s and 9s, and even some people like Nintendo Life claiming that it's one of the best Mario RPGs out there. But then you have those that think a little bit opposite of this game, and aren't having a great time. Obviously, there's one big review out there that a lot of people have seen, and that's obviously IGN, who claims the game is very underwhelming and gave it a 5 out of 10. They made claims like the story was lacking, the gameplay overworld exploration was just not fun, lots of slow hand-holding and bloatedness dragging the game out far longer than it needed to be, and also apparently having abysmal performance. However, I always say don't bash a publication for the review until you actually get to play the game. But obviously, after putting in 15 hours already, I'm not done with the game, but I can definitely tell you there's nothing in the world that could happen for the rest of this game to make this a 5 out of 10, or even a 6 out of 10, because this game is not a flawed game. To me, a 5 out of 10 is a broken, bad game, and anything lower than that is just kind of unplayable, so I am definitely not on the page that IGN is on, which is just kind of insane. But they are continuously force-feeding us their review on Twitter because they post it like every hour. It's weird. But unfortunately, it's not just IGN that found this game pretty underwhelming. A lot of other content creators and even just fans of the series for a very long time have taken to Twitter and shared their experiences, and a lot of it has been negative. So I wanted to really give my opinions for what I think myself. There's some negatives to this game, but there's a lot of positives too, and I want to kind of tell you which side I'm leaning towards. As someone who's played every other Mario & Luigi game about 4 times each, I'm very well versed in this series. I grew up on this series, so I know exactly what this game should be doing and what it's doing. So I'm hoping that I can give you a better understanding of if this game is good or not, or is it a complete miss. Real quick before I dive into my first experience review, please make sure you leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Nintendo. A lot of you watching right now are not yet subscribed. It'll only take a second. Let's see how many people we can get to subscribe from this one video. You guys were killing it last week, getting a couple of days of over 100 brand new subscriptions. Let's see how many we can get on this one video. But thank you guys, and let's dive in. First thing I want to talk about is performance gameplay, and I've seen a lot of people talking about that it's just really bad. Like I said, IGN claiming that you shouldn't even play this game on a docked television because it's that bad and chuggy. Personally, I don't agree with this, at least so far. I mean, if there's some stuff way later in the game, maybe towards the end of the game where there's a lot of things on screen and it's chugging, maybe, but I haven't gotten there yet. Like I said, about 15 hours into this game, close to the 3rd lighthouse, I haven't experienced really any super bad chugging outside of maybe 2 islands out of like the 10 or 12 islands I have so far. The first one was Rumbla Island, which is one of the very first islands of this game. It got really bad once the main boss appeared in this area and started breaking things. I guess all the broken rubble and homes is what really caused this screen to chug and stuff. It was pretty bad, I'm not gonna lie. It was really bad on my eyes. Just watching the screen shudder and shake as it was going from frame to frame was really bad. I mean, this was something that's just unexcusable, and obviously this is because of the old hardware of the Switch, and it's something that Nintendo desperately needs to fix in the future. But yeah, it happened a bit on Rumbla Island and a little bit on the Fire and Ice Island later on in the game, but overall it wasn't anything that really like was noticeable most of my gameplay. I mean, like I said, I only noticed it for like a couple of minutes through my 15 hours, so I definitely don't agree with this, at least so far, unless it gets really bad later on. Another problem a lot of people are having is the long load times, which they are bad, but I will say I actually expected them to be maybe even worse based on where we are with the Switch right now. They weren't terrible, but it is a little bit of a drag to wait for that load screen in and out of every single battle, and it may even discourage people from battling all too much, because in the past games it was pretty daggone quick when you jumped in and out of battles. So yeah, this is a minor problem, and it's something that I feel like will obviously be fixed up with the Switch 2, being a lot faster, but it really wasn't anything that I wanted to complain about until I saw people talking about it. Like, it wasn't too bad. It's fast enough to get the job done. Now let's talk about Overworld gameplay. I've seen a lot of people state that the gameplay was just kind of boring, you're just running around doing nonsense, and I feel like it's not too different than any other Mario & Luigi game so far. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I've seen also a lot of people complain that the game is just very linear. It's about going from island to island, starting from the beginning and working your way to the end of the island in order to reach the lighthouse. But please correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't every single Mario and Luigi game this way? You reach some destination, you need to reach the end of that destination in order to fight a boss, collect whatever you're collecting, and move on to the next area. We've seen this multiple times, and it even ties into the story where a lot of people feel like the story is kind of weak here. But once again, is there a Mario and Luigi game that has a really crazy story? Personally, outside of Partners in Time, none of them really do anything super crazy. I mean, you collect pieces of the Beanstar in order to chase down Cackletta in every single area in Superstar Saga. In Bowser's Inside Story, you're just chasing Fawful from area to area, just kind of chasing after him as Mario and Luigi help Bowser from the inside. Dream Team's the same thing, where you're just chasing the villains around until eventually you have to go from area to area making a dream bed. So it's nothing like really different from the formula. If anything, it kind of aligns with it perfectly, and I don't know exactly what people want when they're saying that the game is too linear. How do you make it less linear? Maybe I'm just missing something, but I feel like the only thing that was a little different here is that in Paper Jam, they opened up the areas a lot more, making them a lot bigger and more open spaces, allowing the bros to run around. But a lot of the time, at least in Paper Jam, it would result in giant open areas with nothing to do in them. Personally, I enjoyed the little stories on each of the islands that also tied into the great overarching story, and I thought they were really well done, and they had some new mechanics in each area. For instance, in Desolate Island, you'll find that all the civilians are being taken by Snaptors, and you have to figure out what's going on. But in order to reach the lighthouse, you have to play a good old Majora's Mask minigame of finding the children around the city, which is a really cool change of pace. Lotta Coins Island was one of my favorites so far. I'm not going to spoil anything for you guys, but there's some branching path decisions that you can make that actually change the gameplay, and I really love how they actually tie this into the overall story as well. Not to mention, there's tons of puzzle solving all over this island, along with battling as well. You'll be kind of piecing together riddles and trying to figure out certain codes to certain doors and opening certain sections of this area, and it's really well done. And on Baldfish Island, it's a big mystery case where you're playing detective trying to figure out who the culprit is, going around asking questions and talking to different NPCs, and like I said, there's just a lot of variety here. And I've even heard IGN say that the locations were just not that unique, and I don't understand what in the world they're talking about. There are so many islands in this game, and every single island has a unique look and vibe to it, and I love every single one. Like I said, with Lotta Coins, it's a giant cityscape. It's a really different approach for a Mario and Luigi game, and then you'll move over to Bulbfish Island, which is themed kind of like Lureland Village from The Legend of Zelda. This cool little fishing shack based island, and it's really pretty to see at night. And also, I'm not understanding why people are saying the story's just not that interesting, when honestly, so far, it feels like one of the more interesting ones, like I said, outside of Partners in Time. Most of them are just you going on collection fest, just trying to find something in order to take down the main antagonist, or you just chasing the main antagonist through areas, which you're kind of doing here. Yes, you're chasing down the main villains here, but you're also going through different lighthouse islands, trying to connect this giant island and learning about new characters along the way. Like every single new island, there's new characters popping up, and even ones that are very important for the story, and I'm really interested in seeing where they're going with this, especially when they're looking like they're introducing another big bad, which is pretty cool to me. Also, once again, it's a Mario game, so I don't know why people keep expecting these games to have these giant stories when Nintendo doesn't even give their game stories that much anyways, unless it's like a Xenoblade or Fire Emblem title. Zelda sometimes, but even those stories aren't anything super deep of recent years. So yeah, Mario is always going to have a basic story, even if it's an RPG, but still at the same time, I think it's a really good story so far, and I really don't have many complaints. Another thing that you've no doubt heard is that the game takes a very long time to get started, and that's definitely the case. I'd say it's about 4 to 5 hours until you really start getting into the meat and potatoes of this game, and I know for a lot of people that's just way too long to sit through before the game gets started, and I get it. It isn't hand-holdy though. I've seen some people say that it's very hand-holdy. Dream Team is hand-holdy. This is nothing like Dream Team. Dream Team is literally acting like you've never played an RPG in your life. There's actually not a lot of guides in this game. I mean, it'll pop up a couple of times when you get some new things, but when they give you new bros attacks or just new abilities, they just give you a couple boxes of dialogue that you can skip through and it's over. There's no weird tutorial with Toadsworth or some character standing in the background teaching you how to jump or dodge or anything like that, like they do in almost every single Mario and Luigi game. Honestly, it's probably one of the less hand-holdy ones, believe it or not. The problem is, it is just bloated. There's lots lots of slow story building. There's lots of slow dialogue that you have to go through and little meaningless side quests that you have to do before you even get to understand what's happening with the main story, before they give time to even build up the villains. You're just kind of doing a whole bunch of busy work and just kind of gathering all the things that you need. For instance, it takes about 3 hours just to get your hands on the first hammer. But after that 4 to 5 hour mark, it definitely opens up, and I found myself having a really good time. I'm not gonna lie, in the beginning it was pretty boring. I'm not gonna lie. I was sitting there just saying to myself, this game really has to pick up soon. And it finally does, it just takes a while to do so. But I heard this is a very long game, and yes, it is very wordy, but I never found myself getting annoyed by the wordiness. And I even heard IGN say that this game just wasn't funny, and that's just a fat lie, like extremely fat lie. I actually found myself chuckling at a lot of things in this game. There's a lot of characters that say some really funny things and Luigi moments that actually made me laugh, and he still acts like he does in past games, just getting himself in trouble situations or being clumsy, falling over, just overall doing goofy things. But there's a lot of characters in this game that legit made me laugh out loud, and I have no clue what people are talking about. This is a funny game. I mean, unless you just don't have humor, like just fun, stupid humor, then you're not gonna enjoy it, I guess. But like I personally chuckled at a lot of things. I think one thing that most people agreed on was battling, and yes, it's great. There's really no problems here. I love the plug abilities that you'll get later on. There's tons of variety, and just doing moves and attacks with both bros is just really satisfying. It takes a while to get most of your bros moves, but overall, I really love the plugs. It really does amp up the gameplay a lot more, and even changes the animations and the way that the Mario Brothers attack, which is really cool, and also the way that they defend. I think my biggest problem is I wish there were a couple more unique enemy designs. I mean, for the most part, you are just fighting plug-themed enemies from the villains, and I wish there were some more crazy ones and wacky ones that made me say, oh my gosh, what is that, when they pop up on the screen. But so far, nothing that really surprised me, and like I said, I'm 15 hours in, and I still haven't seen an enemy type that really made me just like lose my mind of how crazy or wacky it was. But they do have some fun, really diverse attacks. I mean, some enemies have like 5 or even 6 different variations of attacks that they can do, which really has to keep you paying attention. But none of them that really made me struggle so far. And that goes for the bosses as well. Don't worry, I'm only showing off the bosses that were shown within the trailers, which are literally like the first 3 bosses, so you've probably seen these 100 times by now. But yes, the bosses so far have been a lot of fun, but none of them really gave me all too much of difficulty. But they're all very engaging, and I really love the Luigi logic stuff so far. It's really cool to see how he interacts with things in the background and how he interacts with the bosses. I think it's definitely one of the best parts of this entire game. It's always really interesting and exciting to see what he's going to use next within the next boss battle. My only problem is 15 hours in, I fought 2 mini bosses and 2 main bosses. And maybe it's normal so far. I have to actually compare with the other games once the game is finished, but I felt like there was a couple areas that I was ready to fight a boss and nothing actually happened. Instead, they just threw out some more enemies. Like, I'll get to the very end of an island after spending about 30 minutes to an hour on that island, and there will be nothing but a group of smaller enemies to fight before you exit the island. I'm just like, okay, this just felt like it was time for a boss battle. They'll even give you like a save block before you enter the room just to fight a couple of henchmen. Now for the rest of this, I'm just going to kind of talk about some problems that I've been having and other people have been having, some goods, some bads, just everything else that I can think of. My biggest problem is I think there's not a lot to differentiate itself from past games. You know what I mean? I feel like there's not enough new mechanics or something really special. They took the basic route, which isn't bad, but there's like nothing. I don't know, it feels like there's something missing with this game. You know how we had the giant battles or the papercraft battles, or there was an addition of the baby bros and partners in time and stuff like that? I feel like there's something missing here. Like there is some mechanic that they wanted to have and it's just not here. The boat idea is really cool, especially when you're able to move fast. It makes travel actually fun and engaging. I think my only problem is I wish you could stop the boat or just turn the boat around on a specific path, but you can't do that. But I really enjoy traveling, finding small islands that you can explore. There's even islands where you can farm like really powerful enemies, which is actually something that I really was asking for, and they did it. I am so happy. I can't believe they actually did that. But I feel like Nintendo's main gimmick here, like their main thing that they wanted to go with, was Luigi's logic, which is just strange because it's a lot of like over-the-top animations every single time Luigi has an idea, and lots of his ideas are extremely basic. He'll just have this long animation just to say, hey, you should throw me up on this ladder. You know what I mean? mean? Or hey, we should hit these seeds with our hammers. And it's just like normal stuff that you would see in all the other Mario and Luigi games that you would just normally just walk up and just start doing, but they've kind of like tied it for Luigi. I kind of wish Luigi had some special ability or something then, because it just feels like weird that he's the only one that can have these ideas, and they're like really basic ideas. And because of this, I feel like it came off like they were playing it extremely safe. Like, and I get it for like the revival of the franchise. They wanted to keep it back to its basics and have some basic gameplay things. And it feels very similar to Superstar Saga or something like Partners in Time, which I understand if that's the way they want to handle it this time around. And then for the next games that are coming after this, they start incorporating some of that stuff again. But it does make me miss some of the things of past games, like having an additional playable character like the babies or even Bowser, or having some sort of, you know, special battles like giant battles, papercraft battles, or like the dream world to explore, or the inside of Bowser's belly. It's very safe. It's just kind of like you're traveling to islands, you have your basic battles, you have your ship, and Luigi has some thinking moments, and that's about it. It feels like there is just something missing, and something that I really felt like this game was going to do as its main mechanic was to allow a second player, which is another big problem for a lot of people, is that it doesn't allow anyone to play as Luigi, when Luigi literally functions on his own. He's almost entirely AI in this game, and it is a very weird feeling. The fact that you're doing every jumping, every platforming, everything with Mario only, where Luigi does everything separate. You can just have Luigi be Mario's personal slave and just, you know, smash boxes, gather turnips, gather the light bulbs, just do everything separate from Mario. And it feels very strange, and I'm not a big fan of it, honestly. I miss being able to platform and control both Mario and Luigi, make them both jump, and a lot of the time Luigi will just drag behind Mario and even sometimes get frustratingly stuck on things where you have to go back and find him. There's a couple times where if you get too far from Luigi, it'll stop where you're at, pull Mario off the platform or wherever that you made your progress in order to go meet with Luigi somewhere else, and it's frustrating. And I just personally hate the whole AI Luigi thing, and it really feels like at some point in development they decided to just cut multiplayer. Like, it was actually here. There was going to be co-op. You was going to have another player be able to play as Luigi, and I can't even for the love of me figure out why in the world this wasn't a thing. It was actually something that I was looking forward to. I normally hate co-op. I like to just play alone, but this is one of the first times ever I was so down for it, and they just completely ignored a possible function that would have been really cool. But yeah, this whole AI Luigi thing is very annoying. Also, in battling, a lot of people have been complaining about this. You don't choose Luigi's attacks with B, and it might seem minor, but it's a big deal if you played the series for a long time, where you will constantly just have the brain thought of pressing B. I did all the time, and it's so frustrating for it to not do anything. But overall, this game definitely has some flaws, but there's a lot of it that I actually enjoy. I've been loving my experience so far, and I've been actively looking forward to playing more. And personally, I don't understand where anyone could get the idea of this game of just being a 5 out of 10 or just being bad altogether. Yes, it suffers from some problems of being bloated at times and playing it a little too safe where it could use some cool gameplay ideas, but overall, I've still been having a really good time, and I can't wait to see the rest of this game. But let me know in the comments down below, where do you stand? Have you been having a bad time with this game, or have you been having a great time, or are you more in the middle? Definitely let me know down below. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe before you head out, and like always, I'll see you all on the next one. See ya, guys.